start with this. It was officially announced late yesterday that Amanda Serrano is planning a mixed martial arts return as she inks an agreement with the PFL.
I remember it was in 2018 Amanda first stated that she would be dabbling in mixed martial arts moving forward.
Given how much time has passed and how much success she's having in the sport of boxing, it didn't seem like something she would return to. Professional Fighters League have announced an exclusive partnership with Amanda Serrano, which will see her fight exclusively in MMA for the new PFL pay-per-view Superfight Edition. Serrano, the undisputed featherweight champion, is scheduled to return to the ring this Saturday night in Texas. Serrano will face Heather Hardy in a rematch as the co-featured attraction to Jake Paul's crossover boxing match with MMA veteran Nate Diaz. Serrano has a record of 44 wins with 2 losses and 1 draw, 30 knockouts in boxing. She also holds a record of 2 wins and no losses with 1 draw in mixed martial arts, winning both her career fights by submission. She also holds a 5-0 record in Nogi Jiu-Jitsu with 4 submissions. Serrano's last MMA bout was in 2021, a victory over Valentina Garcia by submission.
What does this mean for her boxing career, though?
This being a boxing channel, we have to address how this might affect her career as a boxer. Serrano joins Francis Ngannou, Jake Paul, and Kayla Harrison in the PFL pay-per-view Superfight division. Her debut in the PFL, Smart Cage, and opponent will be announced at a future date. I joined the PFL pay-per-view Superfight division because of their revolutionary format that empowers the fighters like never before. The PFL's commitment to promoting high-profile pay-per-view events with some of the biggest MMA stars in the world showcases an incredible opportunity to elevate my career to new heights and prove my ability beyond just the ring. I may be known for boxing, but I've always loved and trained in MMA and Jiu-Jitsu. Knowing those skills would only add to my ability when going against any opponent.
There's a lot of people that want to see a Taylor rematch or perhaps a Baumgartner showdown.
All excellent and lucrative fights, but now that Amanda has this option, it's not a guarantee she fights Katie again for more reasons than one, and it's not a guarantee that she'll still be in the sport of boxing long enough to see herself fight Alicia Baumgartner.
If you're a 7-division champion, you've already been a champion at 7 weights, you hold 2 Guinness World Records, and you've been in a super fight, you're currently an undisputed champion. If you're Amanda, you might want to do other things.
She is a 14-year veteran of the sport. She debuted as a professional in 2009. She was around long before what the sport became here today.
When the money was low and opportunities were scarce, not many major platforms wanted to feature women boxers.
You have to say that in the last couple of years, things have really changed. Things have turned around, and Amanda has been able to reap the benefit of that. But at this point, she may be interested in other things, saying the league's commitment to gender equality, providing equal opportunities and recognition of female fighters, is also a driving force behind my decision. I can't wait to step back into the cage and deliver thrilling performances and unforgettable moments for fans around the world.
And has been in the sport of boxing a long time, and perhaps trying something new so to speak, it probably gets her juices going.
I really would hate to see her go at this point when there are so many great fights to make and so many opportunities, but I do understand the sentiment behind a 14-year veteran wanting to do something else, perhaps leaving this sport at the height of her popularity, the peak of her powers, to enter into something else. Amanda,
remember that a lot of the time, people don't retire from the sport of boxing. The sport of boxing retires people.
Amanda's still got some good years left. She's only 34 years old, and she's done most of what there is to do as a professional boxer.
Though if nothing else, what this communicates to me is that maybe we don't see a Taylor rematch. I mean, depending on what happens between Katie and Chantel, a lot of people think Chantel's going to beat her again.
Their fight, their rematch, was officially announced yesterday, along with this announcement that Amanda would be going to the PFL.
What may have started out as dabbling in a new sport because the sport of boxing wasn't paying her the way she wants to be paid has resulted in a genuine desire, a genuine interest to try her hand at mixed martial arts, perhaps full-time.
I remember you saw a trend of female fighters crossing over into mixed martial arts. Fighters like Amanda Serrano, Heather Hardy, Ava Knight, more recently Clarissa Shields.
For the same reason, because the sport of women's boxing, it wasn't paying them right. This is different.
You know, you have to do things for the right reason. In order to excel, you have to do things because you like them, because you love them. That this decision to go back to mixed martial arts isn't necessarily motivated by money so much as passion, because Amanda's got money. She's making money.
Just built herself a house in Puerto Rico and relocated there.
This isn't all about money. I would say the takeaway here is that if Amanda has inked a pact with the PFL, I wouldn't hold my breath to see her share the ring with Alicia Baumgartner. And depending on what happens between Katie and Chantel in their rematch,
if Katie loses, there goes the neighborhood.
The takeaway is that Amanda Serrano no longer has all her eggs in one basket.
She's not waiting by the phone, waiting for Eddie Hearn to give her a call, for a Taylor fight, for a Baumgartner fight. She's got her own things that she's working on.
In men's lightweight and welterweight news, quote, soundbite from Gervonta Davis that dates back a couple of months. It's not a recent soundbite, but it's been doing the rounds.
It's about a Crawford fight.
Gervonta Davis stated a few months ago, at 147, if I tap that chin, you know he's going to sleep. He ain't got no chance. I got round six in reference to potentially moving up and facing Terrence Crawford. Now, these comments, and I remember these comments, they're from before this past weekend's fight. This signature fight, Terrence Crawford's greatest victory, some would say, over Errol Spence Jr. The dominance he exhibited. You have to wonder if Gervonta Davis would feel the same way if he knew.
Remember that Gervonta Davis picked Errol Spence Jr. to win the fight. These comments are from way before that. Would he have said the same thing? Would he feel the same way if he knew that Errol would get dismantled quite easily in 9 rounds?
Last week, after Naoya Inoue in Japan, opposite the ring, then unbeaten Stephen Fulton. Last week, after he annihilated that guy, there was a lot of talk about Inoue potentially moving up in weight 13 pounds to face Gervonta Davis at lightweight.
The usual suspects really got behind that, likely feeling bitter and salty that they were backing Stephen Fulton to win, and that didn't happen. So the next best thing would be to have Naoya Inoue move all the way up there to lightweight.
You might have forgotten about that on the heels of this past weekend's fight, that was a conversation, albeit a brief conversation, about Inoue potentially one day moving up to lightweight. Bear in mind that he really just arrived at super bantamweight, done absolutely nothing at feather or super feather. These guys want him to move all the way up to lightweight.
From where he is now, he'd have to put on 13 pounds.
From super bantam at 122 up to lightweight at 135. That's 13 pounds. Why don't Gervonta Davis move up 12 pounds and put his money where his mouth is? Gervonta Davis, he's at 135 right now. Go up to 147.
You said you think you can stop Terrence Crawford in 6 rounds? Let's see you do it.
The naivety or the comfortability, pick your poison, whatever it was that motivated Gervonta Davis to say that
dumb,
asinine.
Listen, Butterball, you needed 12 rounds to stop a one-legged journeyman in Yuriorkis Gamboa. You fought a far worse version of that fighter than Terrence Crawford did. When he fought him, he was an unbeaten guy, and he stopped him faster than you did after he turned out to be a journeyman.
This guy literally needed 12 rounds to stop a one-legged Gamboa with a torn Achilles tendon. He needed 12 to put that guy away, and he couldn't put Isaac Cruz away at all.
Isaac Cruz is a fucking garden gnome with no jab.
Isaac Cruz, a mid-range to inside pressure fighter, guy that was standing in front of Gervonta Davis for all of 12 rounds, and the only thing Gervonta Davis broke was his own hand.
Isaac Cruz, a fucking garden gnome, and Isaac Cruz puts you on your back foot. What do you think Terrence Crawford would do to you?
No, I don't actually expect Gervonta Davis to move up in weight and take on the best welterweight in the world. When he moved up to lightweight, he certainly didn't face any of the best lightweights in the world, and when he moved up again to super lightweight, he didn't face any of the best super lightweights in the world. That's not who he is as a fighter.
Boy, if you don't get...
What is Gervonta Davis's lightweight resume? Did he fight the likes of a Teofimo Lopez, of a Solo Lomachenko, a Devin Haney, a Shakur Stevenson? These kinds of fighters? No, I'll tell you what his lightweight resume is.
No.
A super featherweight in Hector Garcia, not a lightweight, a journeyman in Yuriorkis Gamboa, a nobody in Isaac Cruz, and a retard in Rolly Romero.
What about Ryan?
Ryan Garcia fight wasn't fought within the lightweight limit. It wasn't fought at 135. It was fought just above 135 at 136. That's a super lightweight contest, not a lightweight contest.
When he moved up to 135, he didn't face any of the best 135-pounders. And when he moved up again to 140, he didn't face any of the best 140-pounders. He faced Mario Barrios, not Josh Taylor, not Regis Prograis, not Subriel Matias.
Mario Barrios. So when he moves up to 135, he doesn't fight the best guys. When he moves up to 140, he doesn't fight the best guys, but he's going to move up to 147 to fight Terrence Crawford.
Gervonta Davis is just another souped-up PBC hype job. Just like Wilder, just like Errol.
You don't actually need Gervonta Davis to move all the way up there to 147 for someone to expose him. Just let him climb in there with Shakur Stevenson and watch what happens. For 5 years, I told you that Errol wasn't fit to carry Terrence's spit bucket. And I'm telling you now, the same applies to Gervonta Davis and Shakur Stevenson. Shakur Stevenson would give him a boxing lesson.
You see what happens when they let those souped-up Showtime fighters play with the kids from another side of the street, the kids on the other side of the fence? Don't you see what happens? What Fury did to Wilder, what he knew he did to Fulton, what Crawford just did to Spence.
A long history of this stuff. What Vosdick did to Stevenson and what Better Beef did to Brown.
What Crawford did to Porter and what he just did to Spence. What would Shakur do to Davis?
You don't need for Gervonta to go to 147 for someone to expose him. It could happen to him right there at lightweight. All he's got to do is find his pen and find his balls.
Him versus Crawford isn't even fair.
You know, just last week I saw people proposing that he knew he'd move up 13 pounds for Davis. Why don't Davis move up 12 pounds for Crawford?
He said he'd knock him out in 6 rounds. Let's see it.
Gervonta is a coward. He'd never do that. He'd never put his money where his mouth is. He barely fights the good fighters at his own weight. You think he's going to do that at somebody else's? And just in keeping with the theme and the fallout of this past weekend's action, Kenny Porter, the father of Sean Porter, on Spence versus Crawford's stoppage, I wouldn't have let that go on that far. And we know that to be a fact. He pulled his son out of the fight, as I said he would.
Oh, you forgot that I called that outcome too. While Spence fans were telling you that Sean would be too big and too strong and too persistent, I told you Kenny's going to throw the towel.
Kenny Porter, who said, I don't know what the game plan was. I'd have some thoughts on how long the punishment that Bud was handing out, how long that lasted. In my eyes, me personally, that lasted too long. I know without a doubt, I wouldn't have let that go on that far. It's not necessary. Definitely the stoppage should have happened there in the 7th round, but I'm saying, like, after 6 rounds into a fight, you haven't won them. There's no way you can come back on the scorecards. You can't come back. You need the knockout to come back. You have a trained eye as a trainer to see your guy is not going to be able to come back from this. He's down too far on the cards. He doesn't have the pop on the punch. He's not able to hit this guy with anything.
I do happen to agree with Kenny that this fight went on perhaps 2 rounds longer than it needed to. In the 7th, it was very obvious that there's no win in this fight for Errol.
He's down too far on the cards. He doesn't have the pop on the punch. He's not able to hit this guy with anything substantial to change the direction of this fight. So as each round goes on, he's just taking more and more punishment. I would have definitely said, that's enough, son. We've had enough. We're done. That's what he did with his own son, Sean Porter, after Terrence scored 2 knockdowns. He knew what was about to happen. Apparently, Derek didn't.
Perhaps Derek was too stubborn, or perhaps Errol told him ahead of time, don't stop the fight. If he's getting hurt and he's getting hit, he wants to go out on his shield.
Me personally, I wouldn't want to see the rematch, Porter said. If Spence decides to go for that, and they make that fight at 154, I know he's going to do better, and he believes in himself. He's a warrior, and he believes that he can beat Terrence. I believe that opportunity should be there for him if everything else is in place in terms of his health. We don't know. I know from being in those dressing rooms that after these fights are over, guys will have to be seen by doctors, not just on site, but they'll have to go to the hospital. And I've seen guys win fights. They're victorious, and they're still going to the hospital.
Strange that Kenny Porter says in the same sentence that he wouldn't want to see a rematch, but he believes that Spence can do better at 154. I guess just not good enough to win it, since he doesn't want to see a rematch.
Now, 2-division champion and Hall of Fame inductee Tim Bradley gave a more direct set of comments, a more direct set of quotes about a second fight, about a rematch, and he didn't pull any punches.
Or you drink a special drink and give you other gifts or whatever, bro, I'm letting you know, you easy to read. And you cannot be easy to read when you're in the ring with a great fighter that can make adjustments and that can read you like a book. You're not gonna do well. It's gonna be worse the second time for you. Worse. Because now he's already felt you. He's felt your strength. He's felt your power. And now he knows what he can do. And so he's gonna start sooner. Just to prove a point. And trust me, he's gonna do the same thing, exact thing he did, and it's gonna be successful the second time around.
Doing it at 154 instead of 147, it's not going to make the least bit of difference. Not according to Timothy Bradley, and I share in that opinion because
He's simple.
a big part of why Errol lost that fight is because he's too simple. His plan of action seems to have relied on the predication that he would be too big and too strong for Terrence to absorb his punches, and he found out he's not that much bigger than Terrence, and he certainly isn't stronger.
How many times did you hear me say that Errol Spence Jr. is the same fighter, fight by fight? He doesn't change much. He does the same thing with every single guy.
Now, what his supporters are latching onto is the idea that he was weight drained. He was weight drained, and that's why he wasn't able to take the punches, though the fact that he was taking punches, irrespective of being able to absorb them or not, just the amount of times he was getting hit, that speaks to how simple a fighter he is.
It's too simple for Terrence.
There are two prongs in play here, two primarily. There is the strategy aspect of it, that Errol's approach is far too simple for Terrence, and then there is the physical, the physicality of it, that punches are going to get in, and this guy's not going to be able to take them.
They believe that it will be different at 154, that Errol will be more durable.
How does him being more durable stop him from getting hit? How does him being more durable correct the defensive deficiencies that got him hurt in the first place?
It doesn't. And who says that Errol's going to be the only one who's more durable at 154? Who says he's going to be the only one that's stronger since he doesn't have to boil down to 147? That applies to Terrence too.
How dismissive Errol Spence Jr.'s fans were of Terrence Crawford and his boxing acumen is a reflection of how dismissive Errol was and how dismissive Derek was.
One reflects the other.
And now that people think something as simple as the weight, the contracted weight of the fight, that's supposed to make all the difference, that's the kind of naivety.
That's why you guys feel blindsided.
You don't want to accept that Terrence is by and large a better boxer than Errol Spence Jr. And even if Errol turns out to be slightly more durable at 154, slightly stronger, that's a two-way street, my friend.
Terrence will too.
Kenny Porter, he didn't want to say it outright, that Errol's chances are slim to nil in a second fight with Terrence. He didn't want to say it outright, but Tim did.
And I agree with him.
It's not going to be different in a rematch, and if anything, it'll be worse.
Think long and hard what you want to do moving forward.